Thanks, Nadine. And I'd just like to say thanks to Payments New Zealand for inviting me along to come and talk a little bit about the MPP. So I just want to spend a little bit of time this morning to talk about where we are on that journey, to share a little bit about how actually the new payments platform works, and then we'll have a little chat with Layla. We do need a fire. It's a bit cold in here today, isn't it? So let me just start a little bit about the platform. So the new payments platform has been built as completely brand new infrastructure to support real-time payments in Australia. And it has 4 key capabilities. The first is the real-time movement of money, account to account, with real-time central bank settlement happening line by line. It enables simpler addressing with our PayID addressing service, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. It has data-rich capability with the ability to have data carried with the payment, and we think that's going to provide a lot of exciting opportunities for the Australian market. And it's always available, 24/7, 365 days of the year, which is expected by customers in a digitally connected world. So how does it actually work? The new payments platform is a distributed architecture of MPP payment gateways, or PAGs as we call them, that have been built specifically by our infrastructure provider, Swift. And if anybody has any really technical questions, Bill Doran will be happy to answer them. It uses the ISO 20022 message standard. And the payment gateways have been designed to enable the processing and routing of the transactions between the payment gateways, and the RBA's fast settlement service has been specifically built to support real-time payments. And that can be done using the PayID addressing service, or also BSB or account numbers as well. One of the core objectives of the platform was to enable that we had different ways that different organisations can participate in the platform. And so there's a number of different ways that can be done. We have what's called an MPP participant, or the financial institutions who are connecting directly and doing the actual processing of payments in real time. Sitting behind a number of those participants are what we have called identified institutions, and those institutions are able to access the platform indirectly, so they don't have to actually put up the capital and the investment to set up a real-time environment in their own back offices. They can connect through somebody else, and we have a whole bunch of smaller financial institutions who are choosing to go down that path. We also have what's called a connected institution, which means that an organisation that deals with a large volume of payments can actually connect directly through their own payment gateway to be able to send real-time payment initiation messages into the system. And that could be like a share registry or payroll provider, for example. And then we basically have what we call overlay services. So the platform was designed to intentionally separate the infrastructure from the products, with the intention being that we wanted to have a platform that could really support multiple use cases and be extendable to different types of products. And those products or overlay services will sit on top of it. And they can be determined by any organisation. Essentially, they just have to be a body corporate licensed to do business in Australia. And they define the actual business or customer proposition that end customers will see. I'm going to just touch a little bit on PayID and the addressing service, which is all really intended to just make payments simple. So how exactly does it work? The PayID addressing service enables payments to be directed using an easy-to-remember alias. So you don't actually have to remember your BSB and account number anymore. You can use a phone number. You can use an email address. Businesses can use their ABN, or what's called an organisation identifier, to enable payments to be made to their account. It is an access-controlled secure repository of those proxies and encrypted account details. One of the very important aspects of PayID from a customer's perspective is that it's being provided by their financial institution. So it has the trust and the security that customers expect from their banks. Because if I want to have a PayID, I have to go to my financial institution and I have to register there that I want to be able to set up my phone number and link it to whatever account I want to link it to. Those registering financial institutions are responsible for the effective, correct authentication of the customer registration. But the beauty of PayID is that those PayIDs can be ported. So if I decide that I want to move from ANZ to CBA, for example, I can just pick up my PayID, point it to a different account, and all my payments that are linked to that account are going to follow automatically. And this is Gary the Goldfish. So we ran a customer education campaign at the time of launch to really educate customers about PayID, what is it, how does it work, to really sort of provide that customer education aspect. I want to talk a little bit about the first overlay service, which has been branded OSCO. OSCO has been provided by BPay. OSCO doesn't mean anything, it's just sort of a made-up word. But the first overlay service is essentially a P2P payment service. So it will basically enable the fast movement of money. Typically it takes about around 10 seconds or less for movements of money to be done and those funds to actually be available for use. The Pay ID addressing service can be used in terms of more ways to address your payment to your bank account. And it has easier messaging. So we're moving from 18 characters to 240 characters are available, including emojis, which actually has been really popular. People love using emojis in their payment messages. The banks are finding that a bit of a interesting challenge in terms of how to interpret some of those emojis, but it's been very popular. It also provides confidence in delivery. So I get confirmation before once the payment is made. And I also get confirmation of who I'm actually intending to pay before I make that payment. So I'll get confirmation of the person I'm trying to pay in terms of their registered name. And I can say, yes, that's the person I'm intending to pay. And I'll press the button and the payment goes off. And it's accessed through a customer's financial institution through either their mobile banking app or internet banking. And that's the first overlay service. Future overlay services will include the ability to make a request for a payment to be made. And we see a lot of applicability on the corporate side there. And also the ability to have a document as well, or links to an externally hosted document. So we went live in February. So we've been up and running about 4 months. And so where are we today? We have more than 60 participating financial institutions. Actually, the number's actually about 65. We have critical mass in terms of account reach at about 60% of customer accounts that are reachable in the Australian market. Pay ID is available for registration. The OSCO product is being offered and financial institutions are progressively rolling out their product and service offerings to their customers. They're starting initially with retail customers, but then progressively moving to business and corporate customers as well. In terms of Pay ID registration, we've seen great take-up. So in 4 months, we've got 1.74 million Pay ID registrations, which is really great. And in particular, we've seen a lot of take-up and interest from small businesses. Small businesses love the Pay ID for its simplicity. They love being able to use a mobile phone number or an email address to use as a Pay ID, as well as an ABN. Just in terms of some of the customer feedback, very positive, very strong. People obviously love the fact that they can get money in real time and that the money is available and they don't have to wait 2 days anymore in some cases. And they love the simplicity of the Pay ID. So where to next? Obviously we've started with P2P. That's typically where most real-time payments start. And then looking overseas, and this is sort of a case study of mobile pay in Denmark, typically we see a lot of real-time payments move into the online space quite quickly. They also move into sort of the micro-merchant space, where merchants are very keen to use the real-time payment rails. And then moving into sort of point of sale longer term, and also we see an opportunity in B2B. So we're expecting that, sort of quite quickly the platform will move from P2P into P2B and then B2B as well. But mobile pay is a great case study in terms of, in a short period of time, they've had great take-up and seen the expansion of that product offering as well over time. In terms of what some possible future overlay services might be, here are just a couple of examples and some of the things that we're actively looking at in the marketplace. And a lot of it really is more about the data capability rather than the speed of payment is where we see the opportunity, and really the ability to leverage the ISO message schema to really drive that data-rich capability. And so e-invoicing is one example, whereby there is the ability to have some of that structured data passed with the payment. Stock markets is another one. So really streamlining some of those processes that today are quite manual and really having increased efficiency and straight through processing, say for corporate actions, dividend payments, etc. Payroll is another one. And also particularly looking to see how we can support the Australian government's single touch payroll initiative, whereby you have your payroll payment, you have your superannuation payment, and you also have the confirmation of the tax paid to the government at the same time as well. But actually an overlay service doesn't have to be customer facing. It could also be something that's more sort of compliance related. So it could be looking at sort of AML or fraud or sanctions where there are some regulatory capabilities that are put on top of the platform as well. And so, sort of the opportunities really are endless, and that's what's really exciting about the platform. So what are we actually looking to do next? Well, really, now that we're live, a lot of our focus is also about how do we actually cultivate the ecosystem? How do we encourage adoption? How do we really drive awareness of the platform across multiple sectors of the economy, from fintechs to corporates to consumers? So there's a few things that we're doing. So a lot of emphasis on just continued education to really inform the market about the platform. How does it work? How can it be used? Where are the opportunities? We're currently working on an API framework. We think it's important to drive the standardization and interoperability around APIs, particularly as we look to open up the ecosystem to fintechs and corporates around things like payment initiation messages. So we're doing some work there. We're also looking to provide a bit of a testing environment. So what we find is that a lot of organisations, particularly fintechs, really just want to be able to come somewhere to kind of really understand how does it work? How can I kind of get my hands dirty? How can I play around with it and test and learn? And we're also focusing a lot on collaboration opportunities with the banks. So really the success of the platform will be driven by the collaboration side of the financial institutions working with corporates and fintechs and others around what are some of the opportunities. How do we collectively drive that innovation in a collaborative environment? So we're working on a few things there. So what does the MPP mean for Australian payments? So basically moving from, the old environment, which is, cut-off times, just weekdays, batch environment, limited data of 18 characters, having to use a BSB and account number, to an environment that's 24/7 by 365, individual line-by-line settlement, being able to have the data-rich capability and the smart addressing with PayID, and moving much more to an electronic payments environment. And just finally, so, it is early days. The banks are still in that rollout. It was always going to be a progressive rollout and ramp up. It was never going to be a sort of, flick the switch and suddenly everybody's on. But the early indicators are very encouraging. So we have great broad participation by financial institutions, positive customer reach and adoption, considerable interest from corporates and fintechs who want to be able to use the platform. And really having the flexibility for the future that we can really support a whole range of different use cases in the future and potential future products. So it's a very exciting time, and watch this space. Thank you.